Welcome, everybody, to the Competition Archery Media Podcast, where we explore all things pertaining to competition archery. I'm your host, PJ Riley, and the Competition Archery Media Podcast is brought to you by our fine platinum sponsors. We've got True Ball and Excel, Mathews, PSE, Black Eagle, Elite, B3 Archery, and Victory. Thanks to them for their support of CAM. And we are in the studio today. We got a special guest from the Great White North, Chris Perkins. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys.
So, Chris, you're like half a quarter of a way through this big trip you have down here in the States.
Yeah, it's just with all the restrictions back home, it's not allowing me to fly back and forth and not have basically, I guess, enough days in between each one before the next event. So yeah, it's I've been here for, I guess, been close to a month now. So another event in 2 weeks, and yeah.
Well, but it's going pretty good. I mean, you're 1 for 2 so far.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you could say that for sure.
So you came down for the Rushmore Rumble, shot there, and then of course we had the Hoyt Pro-Am ASA, which you won, known pro, and then next up is Indoor Nationals.
Yeah, back in Yankton.
Gotcha. How was that for you, switching back and forth, indoor, outdoor?
It's a bit of a transition. The Rushmore, obviously, I was basically shooting that bow before that event. So, and I didn't shoot it much. I think I maybe shot, maybe 4 or 5 Vegas rounds just to kind of get everything warmed up again and kind of figure out what I'm doing again. And after pretty much a year off, but yeah, then obviously shooting the 3D bow and then back to indoors. It's a bit of a transition there.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because apparently right before Rushmore, and you made it into the finals.
Yeah.
You had only been shooting, like you hadn't, when you say you took a year off, I mean, when was the last time you shot your bow? You weren't practicing, you weren't doing anything.
No, I mean, I was shooting a bow, but it wasn't a tournament bow, obviously did some hunting there in the off season, and I was always shooting a bow.
Yeah.
Just not the tournament stuff. But that particular bow that I shot at the Rushmore, the last time I shot it was in Vegas. So that would have pretty much been exactly a year.
Yeah.
And I think I actually figured it out. It was like 364 days, from when Vegas was in 2020 to when we shot the Rumble. So
holy cow.
Yeah, so I had to dust it off a little bit and pull those arrows out of the tube, and I just kind of make sure everything was still good. I did make a few little changes while I was at the Rushmore just before our first scoring round there, everything worked out good.
How do you do that though? Just pick up the bow and I'll just stop shooting. I mean, you're not. I don't even know where to begin with that. Muscles being weak and
like I definitely had to remove quite a bit of weight off the stabilizers. I think I took 8 ounces off of it at the start, just to kind of get, like I said, everything kind of warmed up and the feeling back. And as I was practicing at home, like I said, through those few rounds that I did shoot, most of the weight all come back on. I think there might have been an ounce or two that I didn't put on during the Rumble, but as far as everything else, it was pretty much the identical from the year before. And
the pin, you were able to get the pin to sit still. How you like it?
Yeah, like I said, I made some small changes. I think I did a few draw length changes, put it in the string or the cables or whatnot, and everything. Everything felt good as far as how the bow shot and the reaction and how the arrows were, and everything was fine that way. So
that's crazy, man. It would take me like 6 months to get back if I took that much time off.
Yeah, like I said, it definitely didn't feel right when I first picked it up. I was like, gosh, I didn't realize I shot a bow this heavy, But obviously throughout the season, you're shooting a lot. You're fairly conditioned, so.
But then you go out to down to Foley, Alabama, and just crushed it. I mean, that was at 50 up for the weekend.
Yeah.
And actually, we should say there was a point there where there was chatter going around. We thought you were going to hit 60.
Yeah, there was, I don't know if I told you or if I told Greg, and there was 5 targets on day 2 that I actually didn't gain any ground. I think we were 15 targets in or 10 targets in, and I was at 44.
Yes, correct.
And then 10 through 15, I only shot 112, and I shot an 8 in those 5.
Yes.
So basically stayed par for those 5. So I mean, yeah, I mean, if I had maybe hit a 10 on that 8 and shot a couple 12s in there, that would have put me, it would have put me right around the 50 mark, and then still had an additional 5 to go. So yeah, I mean, I had 3 8s for the weekend. So, I mean, 8s or 12s, I mean, that's potentially, a few extra points there.
Yeah.
And, and I mean, that's a bow I shot last year as well, for the 2 ASA events that I did shoot last year, exactly the same setup.
And had you done, I mean, you would have been buried under snow, but had you shot any 3D targets when you were at home?
No. I mean, I have the full, the full 20. I think I actually have 30 Mackenzies. And I don't really shoot them that much, or if at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've bought the last 4 new ones, so I don't have the Wolverine, and I don't have the Aoudad.
Okay.
So those are the only 2 that I'm missing. But the other 4 prior to those, for the previous years, they're still new targets. I haven't even shot them yet. As bad as it sounds, I just honestly, I work more so on myself and my setup. And then obviously when I get to an event, I'll go shoot the 10 practice targets and just make sure everything is flowing and make sure the tape is right. So
with your setup, can you see those scoring rings? I imagine one of the black ones at 50 still has to be difficult to see.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've got my clarifier and I've got my lens combination how I want it. I see what I need to see on a well-lit target. And black, I mean, black is pretty much just a write-off, no matter how you look at it. Right. I do find with the black, though, is the black has a lot more sheen to the finish than almost any other target.
Yeah.
So you will get some shadows and you will get some shine marks on those targets. So you do get, a fairly decent reference mark on them. But the other ones on a well-lit, say coyote, for instance, it's a small target, and it's got some fairly decent definition to it. I can see rings out to 45 as long as everything is, lit pretty good.
Sure, yeah.
So Foley has always been one of my favorite places to shoot. Between Foley and Benning, I absolutely love shooting those places because the lighting is good there. And, the target presentations and the setups are always really good. So you've got some good lighting there, and yeah, you can see some rings.
The Foley, the Hoyt Prime, I believe you've won that 3 times in a row. I know for sure 2.
Yeah, 1920.
And then 3.
And then
this one. Man, 3 times. So yeah, you do like that one.
Yeah. Come out of the gate swinging, I guess.
All right. Well, so Chris, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I think it was Tim Gillingham was talking to me about it, like in the shoot down at Foley, and watching you shoot through the courses at Foley. I'll see this confidence when you go up to the target that just looks like if there were a flea out there at 50 yards, you're going to hit it. Are you feeling a confidence when you are out there? Do you feel that all the time, or is there when you're just on a roll you feel it? What Tim Gillingham was talking to me about, forget what tournament it was, and he was just like, when Chris Perkins gets that look in his eye, he's like, I don't know that anybody can beat him. And I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been a few people that have said that, they see that. And honestly, I don't really approach, one event to the next any differently. Yeah, obviously, I guess there is some sort of how I feel as far as preparation goes. But then at the same time, it's like, well, if I don't shoot the 3Ds and I literally just pick that bow up and take it to that event, like, how do you build that confidence when you've never really spent time behind it, right?
Right.
Or have shot the targets. I think for me, like I said, that the biggest thing is knowing my equipment. I know my ability as well, but I also know my equipment's ability too. And learning the setup and just, basically knocking that arrow, looking at the target. Obviously, we know the distance. Getting a good reference marker, whether it be aim off another arrow that's already in the target or, if I'm starting on that target, blank. It's just, I walk up to each one and I know I can hit it. I've done it before. You can shoot an 1.5-inch dot out to 50 yards. That's roughly how big the 12 rings are. And, it basically just boils down to whether I'm essentially aiming in the right spot or not. And you'll hear a lot of people talk about that, and especially dot shooters, somebody that doesn't spend a lot of time shooting an ASA. It is very different. But, for shooting ASAs, I think I've been shooting them I think I shot my first event in 2014. Okay. So I've been shooting them for, I guess, say steadily for 6 years, even 5 years. Most of the targets are reoccurring targets, they have a couple new ones each year. But as far as the sizes of the rings, those don't change. The 10 ring doesn't change and the 12 rings don't change. It's just a visual difference, I guess you could say. But for me, I don't know. I just walk up there, look at it. I know the distance, and I just
aim at it.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly in the known pro class you have to.
Yeah.
But there is a bit of a strategy game there as well. Fully this year, I went in with a little bit different mindset than what I normally do. Generally, what I normally do is dial it and just aim hard at it and shoot it. And yeah, it's worked in the past. And sometimes it doesn't, So this year I went in just a little bit different mindset, a little different game plan that I'm going to kind of carry throughout the season. And from last weekend, or I guess 2 weekends ago, it worked. So
do you do anything to, you hear people say, work on my mental game? Is there something that you do to work on your mental game?
Not really. That is one question that I've been asked a lot. What has been my mental preparation, or what books I have read as far as mental management, and I haven't done any of that. I'll be honest. I've never read a book on mental management. I've never worked with a mental coach. The only thing I've ever done was just put myself in that situation time and time again. And honestly, I think that is the best possible mental system or mental management system that you could possibly do.
Do you, when you get into those situations, Vegas, OPA, ASA finals, whatever it is, are you one of those people who like that? You like the extra pressure?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the energy from the fans and the crowd, I feed off of that. I feel nerves. Like I think everybody feels nerves,
Sure.
It's just what you do with those nerves and how you capture those nerves. For me, that energy and that feeling that I feel while I'm up there, I feed off of that. And at the beginning, when I first started shooting, and I did shoot my first 900 in Vegas, it's very nerve-wracking. I certainly won't say that my knees probably weren't banging together, because they probably were. But, over the years, being in the situations that I have been in the last, I guess, 10 years since I won my world championship, I've definitely understand the nerves more and know how to basically keep, I guess, performing under those situations.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite type of archery? Like, you have done the whole world archery thing, which you don't really do that too much anymore. You said you were hoping to get back into it this year.
Yeah, I was thinking about shooting the world championships if they do happen, but I'm not exactly sure what's happening there yet. But I don't really have a favorite type of archery, whether it be field, indoor, 3D. Honestly, or even FIDA, I guess. I don't really have a favorite one. Like you said, I have done it all. I've shot almost every event pretty much every venue as well. There's not really one that I would pick over the other. I like all forms of it pretty much.
Yeah. The technical, especially like the reddings and the OPAs where you're shooting that distance and stuff like that, I imagine that is a different challenge. ASA, 50-yard max, that's fairly controllable. But then when you start getting 80, 90, 100 yards.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a bit different. I mean, you've got different setups too, and that's another big thing too, is we have so many different types of archery or different types of venues that you have to have so many setups, I guess. And, just changing from one to the next. And it's just, it can be a lot to have each setup for that particular venue perform. And it's like you were saying there earlier, like now we've gone from a 3D event, now we're back to indoors. And we'll be back to indoors for the next few weeks, I guess, because then we have Vegas. And it is a bit of a transition, and for me, picking the bow up, shooting Rushmore, it was good because that's basically just the first bow I picked up and started shooting. And then now that I've shot my ASA bow, which is, it's the same model, but there's a lot of different things going on. I've switched to a fiber and I'm pulling, 5 more pounds and my stabilizer setups are slightly different. My sidebar is, a little bit more kicked out than what my indoor bow is. So a lot of that definitely is a big change, even though it seems, fairly small.
And that's, you're shooting the TRX 38 G2, the new one?
No, I'm shooting the 40.
You're shooting the 40.
I
okay,
am, yeah.
Gotcha. Do you shoot that for everything?
Yeah.
Indoor, out, 3D, everything?
Yeah, and like I said, I'll have 2 different bows. My outdoor bow is, I think, 65 pounds, and then my indoor bow is 60.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted to talk to you about fitness, too, because you made a transformation. There's a video out there of a young Chris Perkins shooting a World Cup event, which you won.
Yeah.
And you definitely look very different than you do today.
Yes. Very
Tell me about that, because I believe your sister played a role in that.
Yeah. So I want to say it was probably 4 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago now. Time does fly. So as far as time frame, I'm not really sure when that was. But when I was shooting FIDA stuff, I certainly wasn't in the best shape. And when I started shooting the ASAs, obviously the hotter climates, a little bit more walking than FIDA is. It just basically was just exhausting, and so basically wanted to make a change, and I wanted to make a change as well for Western hunting too. So that was a big thing, and so my sister is a beach body coach, and so she basically kicked me into gear, and it was just basically watch what I was eating, count every calorie that I was eating, and it was, I want to say it was a year, maybe even a year and a half adventure with that stuff, and cut roughly right around 55, 60 pounds.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Man, how old are you? I don't know.
I'm 28.
28.
Yeah.
55 pounds.
Yeah.
Wow. And now you do some of that Western hunting. I think you went on a goat hunt here within the past year or two.
Yep.
Which, that's as extreme as it gets.
Yeah, that was honestly, like I kind of figured, I knew what I was getting into. And then being on that hunt is like nothing else I've ever experienced. You're standing at the bottom and you're just like looking up, and it's just seems like it never ends. And honestly, like I've never felt better doing that. It was unreal. And my guides weren't very young. I think that one was 58 and the other one was 59. So and those guys were unbelievable in those hills.
Crazy. Where did you do that one?
That was in BC.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah.
In Canada. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny because I did an elk hunt in Montana last year, and unfortunately I did not prepare because I thought, how bad could it really be? Well, I learned the hard way. But,
yeah.
But that goat, too, I understand the shot at it was a poke.
Yes, it was, yeah.
And your guides were not prepared for an archer? Tell us about that.
No, they weren't. So yeah, when I was in touch with them, it's rifle country.
Yeah.
Like, it is not archery friendly. Different parts of BC, as far as mountain goats go, are a little bit more favorable to the archer. But where I was, definitely not. And so I kind of got them a little bit prepared, with me being an archer versus a gun hunter. And during the hunt, I said to them, I was like, you guys ever taken a bow hunter before? And they're like, no, you're the first. And after the hunt was done, they're like, you are the last. So yeah, it was definitely a challenge. We could have been, if I did have a rifle in my hand, we could have been done, relatively early, pretty much on the first hunt, actually. It would have been, over in maybe 45 minutes, half hour. Once we were up there, mind you, we didn't walk that hill in 45 minutes.
How far was your shot?
112.
112. Man, that's a poke. But
yeah, it was.
You're Chris Perkins, so I'm sure you felt confident in that shot.
Yeah, it was good. I shot that bow quite a bit getting ready for that stuff. And,
angle? Or was it straight?
No, it was angled. I honestly don't even remember what the angle was. From some of the pictures, you can kind of see, like, when he tumbled, so he broke off his one side.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, and you can kind of see not really that great kind of where I hit him, and it looks like, it almost looks like I hit him like in the back straps.
Yeah.
But because we were so high and we were shooting down on him, that's obviously where it had entered. And but yeah, we sat on that goat for 3 hours, 4 hours waiting for him to stand up. And
jeez, did you find the horn?
No, we didn't.
Didn't?
I wasn't going back up there. He like I said, he went for a pretty good tumble. I don't exactly sure how far he fell, but he fell for a while.
Gotcha, man. That was your first goat hunt?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, tell me, I don't know how you got into archery. I know you're from a rural part of Ontario. How does someone like that find the world of target archery?
Yeah, so I started archery for hunting purposes. Dad bow hunted, and our season in Ontario is longer for archery. I think most places they do have a longer archery season than they do a gun season, and so that was really the only reason I picked it up. Dad bought me my first bow for, I believe it was my 11th birthday, which was a PSE Nova.
Perfect.
Yeah. And
everybody starts with that one.
Yeah. It's a great bow. I still have it.
Yeah.
And so he bought me my first bow for my 11th birthday. And I basically just shot arrows at home, into a bale of hay, I'm pretty sure it was. And I'm not entirely sure if I had that bow when I shot my first 3D. I want to say I did. And we went to a local 3D tournament. And a really good friend now at the time was just a complete stranger. We had never shot an archery event before, and Dad had really never been around any of that. So he took me, and I shot it, and Dad watched. And a gentleman come up to my dad and said, if he takes it serious, one day I think he'll be really good at it. And Dad was just like, wow, that's pretty cool. He really enjoys shooting, and we shot, a couple more events after that. And I was playing hockey at the time too.
Of course.
Which is pretty, not a surprise there. But in archery tournaments and hockey games were on Sundays. And Dad basically just kind of said to me, you can only do one. It doesn't matter what one you do, but, right. We can't be in two places at once. So, so I obviously chose to shoot, and over the years, we progressively got better setups,
That had to be a big choice, though. From where you come from, to choose archery over hockey, I would imagine that's not as simple as it sounds sitting here.
Yeah, honestly, it's been so long ago now, I don't even really remember kind of how that conversation went or even come about. But obviously, at the end of the day, I chose to shoot a bow, and this is where I am now.
Yeah.
So I definitely went through some setups. I think every bow that I started with, and even during the younger years, as far as my teenage years, I have all those setups.
Is that right?
Yeah, still have all those bows.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so then that gets you to local 3D, but then how do you advance into bigger, national, international?
Yeah, so obviously the 3D was more, I guess there was a little bit of indoor, and we had quite a bit of outdoor as well. At that time, there was pretty much a 3D event every weekend. So we had a basically a schedule of all the events, and I mean we would just go through it, and Dad would just highlight everyone we wanted to go to each weekend in the summertime, and our summertime was archery. I mean we didn't really have any other weekends or time for anything else, so we shot all the time, and I think it transitioned. A few years later, I want to say like 2006 or even like maybe early 2004, I started to transition more to target archery, and I started indoors.
Sure.
And never shot an outdoor FIDA event until like 06, maybe 2007. 2006 might have been my first national tournament that I shot, and that was that would have been a FIDA at the time, and I think we shot like 60, 50, 40, 30 meters in my age group. And yeah, I then really started enjoying the target side of things and kind of faded away from the 3D. And in 2008 was when I made my first national team, and then started traveling to Junior Worlds in 08, I want to say. I think 08 in Turkey was my first Junior Worlds I had shot.
Yeah.
And then 09 would have been in Ogden, Utah. So yeah, I would have shot 08 and 09. So I guess 2008 would have been the first time that I had started shooting internationally, I guess you could say.
Wow. And tell me about that scene in Canada. Is that a big scene? Did you have anybody close to you? In proximity, in other words, that you could work with, or?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was still being coached by a lady named Kathy. It was South Nation Archery in Winchester, and that was pretty much it. I mean, there was a couple other, I guess you could say, local fields, which was another one is in Caledon, which is, I guess, would be the closest one to me at that time, and it would have been 3 hours away or 2.5 hours away. But Kathy was, they were about an hour-ish away. So when I was being coached there, Dad would take me there 3 times a week as far as classes go. And then she also held tournaments as well. So, right. And we shot a lot of Canadian 900 rounds. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with that round at all.
We have a 900 round here.
Yeah.
Outdoor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say that was 70 meters, 50 meters, and 30 meters, I think. Or it might be 55, 45, and 35.
I remember 3 distances.
Yeah,
So
there's 3 distances, and I honestly, I can't even remember what they are now. It's been so long since I've shot one, but so I mean, she would hold events there, and we would shoot at her club. But I mean, as far as the target scene goes in Canada in general is not that big.
Right.
When you get out west, you see a big growth in the 3D side of things. But just where I am, there's not much going on. And even if you look now, as far as the 3D stuff goes, the weekends aren't packed like what they used to, they used to be. So it's not a, I guess you could say, like a thriving sport where I am.
Right. And then what year did you win the world championship?
2011.
That was 2011.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was, actually that was my first ever senior world championships I had been to. And yeah, we just had trials for it as well. So it was basically the same as making the junior worlds team. You had to be a certain rank in Canada, I believe, at that time. And then those top 10, I believe is how it worked, would go on to a trials event, which would be 2 days, maybe 3 days, I think. And basically we would have a 1440 round, or a 720 round, I guess. I want to say my first one was a 1440 because we shot 4 distances. But for the senior worlds, it would have been 50 meters because at that time, in 2011 was the very first year they introduced 50 meters as our 720.
Gotcha.
Instead of the double 70 meter round.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, we went in there and we had a senior trials, and I don't think I came out on top. I think I was like second or third as far as that team selection goes, but made that team, and yeah.
I hear, well, let me start off this one first. So then, about then, when you started getting into fitness as well, did you find that the two of them then, okay, now your archery game is elevated, then you add in the fitness. How did one help the other?
Well, at the start, it didn't help at all. I'll be honest. There was a lot of changes throughout that process. Big draw length changes, big stabilizer setup changes. It was almost like just a complete reset.
Really?
And yeah, it was tough because where I was before and where I was then, it was completely different. And so that was it was pretty stressful because it was almost like I was working backwards instead of working forwards, right? Like you would think, you're in better shape, you feel better, everything is better, your game can only improve. And yeah, now it has for sure. But at that time it was just almost like an up and down roller coaster. Things would go well and then things would just feel so different that it was almost like I'm taking 10 steps backwards to 1 step forward.
Huh. And is that something that you just shot through, or were there times when you were thinking, oh man, this isn't working, I'm going to quit? Or
there was a couple times that I would just get frustrated. I would just hang it up, and just come back to it later on, and just kind of cool down, I guess you could say. But yeah, there's definitely those thoughts definitely crossed my mind, just hang it up and just kind of, I don't know whether I don't think I ever had it was like completely quit.
Right.
But like I said, there was some frustration moments there that it was just hang it up and walk away, and give it some time.
And what would you do during this period, like for work, or how were you living?
At that time, I was still working at the archery shop. There was a little hunting store, and I was working at that shop right out of high school. Actually, it was kind of funny because we have a program at the high school that I went to called Outdoors Class, and it was 4 credits in one class. And we had a month during the school year to do a co-op. Wherever we chose and so on and so forth. So, my choice of co-op was work at an outdoor store. It was great. It was right in my element. And we were there for a month, and I think at that time, Roger and Connie, it was Norse's Live Bait and Tackle, what it was, which is the store. And they had, it was a gun shop, archery shop, and, a fairly large tackle shop and bait shop. And I didn't know anything on that side of the store. That was not my expertise. I was in the gun section and the archery section, and they didn't have a bow technician at the time. And so when my month was over for my co-op, they basically offered me a job. Hey, do you want to work here? And over the years, they were just absolutely fantastic to me because they could see that this was, archery was a dream of mine. And so when events come out, it was, I didn't even have to ask, they were just go,
Wow.
And so I was shooting and I was working there, and yeah, everything was great.
At what point do you think it came into your head that you said, I want to be a professional archer? That's what I want to do with my life.
I don't really think there was ever a point, to be honest with you. it was pretty much after winning the Worlds in 2011 that it was almost like it was, I guess that opportunity was there. I had a phone call from PSC at the time that basically said, we're wanting to put you on pro staff and this is what we'll do for you. And pretty much ever since then, it was just like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing.
This is what I'm doing.
Yeah. And I don't really think I ever sat down and said, one day I want to be, a professional shooter. That was not really my intentions when I first started. Like I said, it was for bow hunting.
Yeah.
If somebody come up to me when I was first starting to shoot and said, hey, you know what, I'll pay you to shoot a bow, I would have just laughed because at that time, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, right.
And lots of people come up to me at home and they're just like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Do you get paid to shoot a bow? And it's like, yeah. And then I also had the question, well, you've won the world, so you're done now.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm just getting started,
Oh, that's good. And we should mention, so obviously you're a very accomplished archer, but you also did a lot of shooting, rifle matches, shotgun.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much anything shooting I enjoy, right? But yeah, I would shoot a few of the 22 matches at home. It's been big in the States, as far as PRS and NRL 22 matches.
Right.
So Canada has brought a couple of those of our own series in. So we have ORPS, which is Ontario Rimfire Precision Series, which is a provincial series. And then we have CRPS, which is a Canadian Rimfire Precision Series, which is a national series. And I have shot both. I've never won a national event, I think third, but I've only ever shot one, And
that's not bad.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as ORPS goes, I think I've won a couple of them. But during those events, we're generally shooting full time. My priority is obviously my archery.
Yeah.
So I don't get to spend a lot of time behind the rifle and really play with it. So I've, when I shot the national one, I couldn't even tell you the last time I shot my rifle. So I actually scored a 0 on the first stage of that series, or that event, I guess. And I was like, well, I can only go up from here, I guess.
That's amazing. It's funny hearing this. I mean, it sounds, some people just have a knack for things, and it sounds like shooting, whatever it is one of those. But I'm thinking of a comment, Levi Morgan, I don't know if you saw it, made last week on one of our social media things. It was talking about you and him, known versus unknown.
Yeah, I did see that debate. That one comes up quite often.
But Levi Morgan said, Chris Perkins is one of the top 3 archers I've ever seen. And it's striking me that you kind of have found this path to where you are now, where it's just like one thing leads into the next. You win this one, okay, let's do this now.
Yeah, it's been, I have a pretty big competitive nature. I'm always competitive in everything I do. Even during high school, we have quite a few, we had quite a few different competitions and stuff, whether it be woodworking or archery as well. We have a series called OFSA, which is a school series.
Oh, okay.
So we have the OFSA championships, which I think I won all of them when I was in school. Maybe not. I think the first year, maybe in grade 9, I think I was second. But as far as
everyone was looking for when you were graduating. Get that guy out of here.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think the last year I shot a 599 and a 600, so I think that record still stands. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, and then during high school as well, my dad does a lot of custom cabinetry work, so woodworking stuff I did a lot in. I did a lot of championships and that stuff, and won several provincial championships in that.
You still do that?
A little bit,
for fun?
not as much anymore. And Dad's generally pretty busy in the shop, so I stay out of his way. But yeah, no, I just kind of everything I do, I try and I incorporate and try and be the best at it.
Snowmobile racing, got to be snowmobile races.
I've never owned a snowmobile. Oh yeah, there is. Yeah, there definitely is.
You have never owned a snowmobile?
I've never owned a snowmobile. No.
Wow, that just seems.
I mean, I've got my four-wheeler with my tracks and stuff on it, but I've never owned a snowmobile.
Wow, that's surprising.
I think that could get me in trouble.
It probably could.
Yeah.
Well, for you, in what you've done, Vegas champion, OPA, ASAs. What for you is the most pressure you've ever felt at a shooting event?
I'm probably going to say the World Championships, just because at that time I wasn't as experienced as I am now. And to go in there, to be the first senior World Championships I've ever shot in, and to be ranked like, I don't know, like 200th or something like that. I think it was 176th in the world at that time. And it was kind of funny. If I've watched that video, I don't know how many times, and I get nervous watching it. And it's just like, well, I mean, I'm more nervous watching it, I think, than maybe I was at the time shooting it. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the ranking results up against Jesse, I think he was like 30th something in the world, and me at 176. So I mean, all odds are stacked against me. And I mean, Jesse at that time, extremely accomplished archer, and then just me, just kind of just making my way through. It's definitely nerve-wracking, and I think that was probably, I mean, by far the most pressure I think I've ever felt there.
Do you think that helped maybe a little bit that you didn't know that this was all new? I mean, I get it. It's the nerves of being out there for the first time. But then again, like, did you even know how big a deal this was?
Not really. Well, and to be honest, I mean, I guess I have been on those stages before because I'd shot the Junior World Championship stuff before. As a team, we were in medal matches.
Right.
But never an individual. But I guess as far as the stages go, it's the same, essentially. But yeah, I think maybe not knowing exactly what was at stake or how big that was definitely helped me.
Yeah.
And then, like, I guess knowing what I know now, that it's like, yeah, like I was pretty chill, I guess you could say.
So off season, not hunting season, summertime, big gap between tournaments. I think there's a big gap this year from June to end of July. What is Chris Perkins? What do you do in your off time?
Well, now that we've got events and we know events are rolling, I'll probably shoot my bow a little bit more than what I normally would. But I'm gonna enjoy that little bit of a break there too, and probably. I'd probably be lying if I said I wasn't going to burn any gunpowder, but yeah, I try and honestly, I think having some breaks in between is good. Instead of it just being archery all the time, I try and break it up so that I don't essentially burn myself out, which I have done in the past.
Gun shooting, that's what you do in your off time? Fishing, anything like that?
I don't fish, no.
Don't fish?
No.
Ontario.
Yeah, right.
Man.
Four-wheel, shoot some guns and go to the gun clubs and yeah, just enjoy that time. I do a little bit of automotive detailing as well. I enjoy that.
Yeah, isn't that what you did last year when you were segregated from archery?
Yeah, so I did quite a bit of automotive detailing for one of the dealerships close by me. So,
gotcha. Is that something you do because you like it, or because it's something you can do?
I just thoroughly enjoy it, which is weird. Like the girlfriend always asks me, she's like, I just don't understand. She's like, how is that fun? But yeah, I think it's just something that's.
And we're talking the real detailing, like these things look like they're showroom floor.
I have everything that I could essentially open up my own business if I wanted to do that. I have all the machines, I have everything as far as like carpet extractors and stuff like that. Like I have everything to, I mean, I did some last year that, I mean, were absolutely filthy. You know, you're going to run into that, especially doing that sort of stuff. But, and, you know, deliver that vehicle and the people are just like, oh my goodness.
Is that the same car?
Yeah. Like it didn't look like that when it rolled off the showroom floor, you know. But I think that's where the, you know, the detail in everything I do comes into play.
Has to be.
You know, it just the trying to get it as perfect as possible. I think.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of my thing.
What's the nastiest car you ever had to do?
I don't even remember, honestly. There's been there was a few.
I don't know if they brought one to you like that fished out of a lake or something.
No. No. You would think people have lived in a couple of them almost, but
that's amazing. Oh shoot, what was I going to ask? Well, before I go on, was there anything that you wanted to talk about that we hadn't talked about? Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. So, archery wise, I mean, you have accomplished so much. You're 28 years old. What's the future look like for you? What are your plans? What are your goals? What's the big one out there you want yet?
As far as events go, the only one that I believe I haven't won, and this is not going World Archery side of things. Archery side of things, I mean, there's an Indoor Worlds, which they no longer have, and then a FIDA Worlds, and I think they have a 3D Worlds as well.
They do,
yeah. So I mean, there's 3 there, but I mean, talking outside of World Archery, the only one I haven't won is an Indoor Nationals. I believe.
And is that like a goal, like in your head? I gotta win that one.
I mean, I'd like to win it. You know, I don't go into that event trying to psych myself out to, you know, oh, I've got to win it this year. You know, yeah. I mean, it's, you know, I hope, you know, over the, you know, the years that I am shooting and then competitive, you know, in the shooting side of things, that I do, you know, get that one. But yeah, I mean, I don't try and go into that event with more pressure than what is already there.
You think you're still shooting competitively 10 years from now?
I hope I am, you know. Honestly, I see it as like kind of a year-to-year thing. You know, for me, I feel like I'm still getting better. You know, like there's a lot of things that I'm still learning, which, I mean, nobody knows it all. You know, I don't think it's a sport that everybody knows everything. And I don't think it's a sport either that, you know, this is the way things have to be. You know, if you look at Tim Gillingham, I mean, that guy, I mean, kudos to him because he is unbelievable out there. But, I mean, if you're going by textbook, that is not the chapter you want to be reading, in my opinion. But it works for him. And I mean, everybody has those things that work for them, you know. Real leans, I lean. It works for us, you know. Yeah. Will it work for somebody else? Maybe. It's a 50-50, you know. So, yeah, it's just, you know, I hope as the years go by that I feel like I'm getting better. Obviously, the competition is getting better. There's lots of people out there now, and especially lots of up-and-comers that are going to be a force to reckon with. And, you know, I hope that 10 years down the road I'm still shooting and I'm still competitive.
Anything that you feel now that like maybe physical-wise an issue? Like do you have any recurring shoulder or elbow or something like that? Anything you work on? No.
I think a couple of years ago, my right shoulder, the very top of it, I might have pinched something a few years ago. And sometimes I'll move it wrong or whatever, and I'll feel it. But nothing that is like severe. You know, that I've never been laid off for weeks upon weeks and can't pull my bow.
Right.
That was just one that was probably, I want to say, probably 10 years ago, maybe less than that I did that for the first time, and I don't even know how I did it, but it's never been something that's been an issue. So Gotcha. Fingers crossed that nothing comes about. But, like you said, you're getting older and things start to go south, I guess you could say. But
stay away from those snowmobiles.
That's right, yeah.
You were talking about Tim Gillingham, and it struck me. This weekend, or in Foley, it struck me that I was looking at him. There he is. He's got gloves on 2 hands. He's got this weird release that he made himself, modified with stuff. This bow with a giant D-loop and these huge V-bars and weird things on his hat. And I'm like, you know what? God love him, though. He wins.
Everything has a purpose.
It does.
Honestly, like, you just look at it. Like, I've always called him Go-Go Gadget because there is, like, things that are, like, everywhere. And it's one of those guys that will, like, change the night before. Like, can just completely change everything. Whether it be an arrow setup or a bow setup. And, I mean, he'll go out and he'll win the event. For me to do something like that, I mean, I would just be... I wouldn't even know where to start. Just completely building a whole new setup, less than 12 hours before we shoot our first round, I would just be an absolute train wreck. But for him, it works. And I think that's, honestly, I don't even know what goes on in his head, to be honest with you. And
no one wants to get in there.
No, I don't think so. But and I think somebody told me that his trigger on his release broke right before he shot the finals in Foley.
Oh man!
But I'm not entirely sure. But it's a feeler gauge. Is his trigger?
It was so flimsy. I could see that it would break.
Yeah. So all it is just a feeler gauge, and he just like cranks it around and bends it in how he wants. And somebody told me that he broke it just before he went out, so he had another one in his. Basically, it's almost like he has like a carry bag on his side. His quiver is so big and full of everything. And somebody said that he had another one on there and he bolted it on the release and he was bending it. He's like, yep, that'll do. So, hey, like you said, it works for him, and he's been winning things long before I ever come into the sport. So I can't knock it. So
What do you think the sport of archery needs? And actually in Canada, let's start with that one. What does it need to get it, to elevate it, to get it to be a more accepted, a bigger game?
We just don't have the people. We just don't have, like I was saying earlier, it's not it's not really marketed in Canada. Like, I mean, unless you're in that group of archery, you don't really know that it exists. No. And like I said, like, I've talked to lots of people, and they're just like, what do you do? And I was like, I shoot, a bow and arrow. And they're like, I didn't even know that was a thing, right? like obviously, like they know archery, and a lot of them are like, wow, like we had the little recurves and stuff in high school. So I shot when I was in high school, and I'm like, yeah, it's not really the same, but yes, like you know what archery is.
Yeah.
And I think we just don't have the numbers like what is here. And the bow hunting side of things, like I said, the bow hunting at home and the bow hunting out west, it is completely different. Like, it is striving or thriving out west.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the hunting side of things.
Right.
Because the bow shops out there and the bow shops at home are like completely different. And a lot of the bow shops out there, obviously, hunting is the biggest part of archery. They carry lots of target stuff as well. Like, the closest target bow shop close to me would be the bow shop in Waterloo. That it would carry high-end target bows, target sights, stabilizers, peeps, everything. Right. And then also have a fairly large selection of hunting stuff as well. And that's 3 hours.
Wow.
And that's it. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And a gentleman was telling me he had looked up, Chris is his name, he had looked up field courses around here, and he says there's lots of them.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. I'm the only one around in, I don't even know how many mile radius you would say, that would actually have a full range of 3D targets.
From where we're sitting now, there's at least 20 field ranges within 30 minutes.
Yeah. And that's just, and it's crazy to think that at home I know of one field course.
Wow.
2 field courses.
That's amazing.
And I have to drive over 2 hours to shoot either one.
Yeah.
So I was kind of kicking myself in the pants during last year with everything being kind of quiet. I should have built a field course at the house. But I dropped the ball on that one.
All right, folks, that's another episode of the Competition Archery Media Podcast. Chris Perkins, we certainly appreciate you taking time to sit with us today.
Well, appreciate you guys having me in here.
And we should say that either today or tomorrow, one of these days coming up here, we're going to be live with you out on the range. We're going to do some shooting. I'm going to feel horrible about myself as I watch you shoot there. But, folks, we're going to be taking questions. Send them in. Again, stay tuned to the Competition Archery Media Facebook page. We'll have the details there, and you can send in your questions. We'll ask Chris while we're shooting. We appreciate your time with that as well. And, folks, the Competition Archery Media Podcast, you can find that on all the platforms where you find your favorite podcasts. Thanks for joining us today.